Hey guys, and welcome back to Regretsit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, Boris Johnson's career has ended up in complete and utter disaster, a complete and utter travesty, a complete and utter waste of a complete and utter incompetent career. Boris Johnson, anybody who thinks in the same way as I think about Boris Johnson has just rolled their eyes and said, who the hell knew? We all knew that Boris Johnson's life was good. Boris Johnson, as a politician, was going to end up in complete, it's just a complete disaster. The thing with Boris Johnson, Boris Johnson was very funny on Have I Got News For You? And I always took Boris Johnson as a complete joke figure. Never ever took it serious, right? That Boris Johnson could actually be the Prime Minister of this country one day. I took it seriously when he wanted to be the London Mayor the first time. That's when I really took Boris Johnson serious because, I always looked at him as a real joke figure. And I always knew that Boris Johnson, because that story about him saying that he wants to be world king was always out there. So you knew that he always wanted to be the Prime Minister, right? But taking him serious, I was like, this would be an absolute joke. There's no way the people of this country would vote for Boris Johnson. And say, how the hell wrong was I? Because I was really wrong about that. Because, the people in this country did vote for Boris Johnson. You see, the thing with Boris Johnson, is he's always been a person just like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, these two people, right, have never, ever wanted to follow the rules, and they've always been indulged in their practice of not following the rules, and people just look at us, they didn't really mean it. They're doing their best, and all this type of nonsense, right? Where they can be breaking the rules or even committing criminal offences. Right, and they've still got people, right, who's gonna go out there and and defend them to the hill, whether it's Michael Gove or whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. These type of people will always go out and put themselves on the line and make themselves soil themselves for the likes of Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, right? Both two men, right, who have gone through their whole lives thinking that they can get away with whatever it is put in front of them, and you've had so much people indulging them all these years, and finally Boris Johnson is things have the chickens have really come home to roost for this fucking fool, right? Don't get me wrong. Boris Johnson has still got a massive career in front of him because these after dinner speeches and his column in the newspaper. So Boris Johnson will be making a hell of a lot of money. But Boris Johnson, he could have just said, well, something, right? I might have got a 90-day ban, but I tell you this, right? I am going to fight my seat in Uxbridge. He could have stood there and fought his seat. Boris Johnson telling us, oh, well, they pushed him out. Never pushed him out. He resigned after they gave him the paperwork and they said, listen, do not, it was written on the top, right, in capitals, right, underlined in brackets that says, do not share this information with anybody else. And Boris Johnson looked at that, and then 2 minutes later, he was out telling the newspapers exactly what was in there, right? And calling the committee all sorts of kangaroo court and all sorts of different nonsense. Right, but and then Boris Johnson could, to prove how popular he is, he could stand to be London Mayor. He was an independent, right, and say, you know what, I'm going to prove myself as a politician. I mean, that would really stick it to the Tories, right? But I'm going to prove myself as a politician, right? How much the people love me in this country. After the vote, and Boris Johnson's completely humiliated in the House of Parliament the other day. And, because, what was it? It was 7 people voted in favour of Boris Johnson. So, and, the strange thing is Michael Fabricant wasn't there. So we can count him out for a start. But I know Jacob Rees-Mogg was there because Jacob Rees-Mogg tried to bring up some nonsense. Even though Jacob Rees-Mogg is a great historian of this country, yeah. But the like for like that he tried to bring up, I looked at and I thought, hold on a minute, this is not, because he said like Lord Hoffman. Now, Lord Hoffman was, he was a judge, right? But obviously, I think as a barrister, he done I mean, I think he done quite a bit on immigration, and he was like a patent. I think he was like a patent judge, right? But there's a case that there's a case or a committee that Lord Hoffman was supposed to had to recuse himself from, because it was thought that he was biased. It wasn't written. He never said it to anyone, but it was just put out there that it's a thought that he was biased. And Jacob Rees-Mogg tried to use Lord Hoffman as a like for Harriet Harman, but Harriet Harperson, I should say. But I don't really think that it really works, because, I mean, then you'd have to find a Labour politician who hadn't called Boris Johnson a liar at some stage. And I think you're going to have a lot of difficulty with that. I mean, you'd have to go for probably Kate Hoey, but she's not an MP anymore. So, and I think you have to be an MP to sit on these committees. So, so you'd have to find a Labour MP that didn't think Boris Johnson was a liar. And say, well, how difficult is that? It's not going to be easy, because you have to have one of the opposition, to sit on the as the head of the committee, right? And so you could find someone from another party, but the only problem with that, right, is all the other parties have come out and said that Boris Johnson's a damn liar. Apart from probably the DUP, the people who do not understand politics. And the reason why they don't think Boris Johnson is a liar, because Boris Johnson can fool them anytime he wants. But so they'd have had to find someone. So Harriet Harperson, right? Boris Johnson obviously wanted to get her off of the committee, but she gave Jacob Rees-Mogg an absolutely brilliant answer. To be honest, because the two cases aren't like for like, right? The answer was slightly different, and if you looked at it, you'd have been, well, it's slightly off, but you had to understand where she was coming from, right? And when I listened to it, I just thought, oh my God, she has just dropped the mic on Jacob Rees-Mogg, right? And then the next day, I'm listening to it on the news again, and I've heard someone in the chamber say, she just dropped the mic on you, Jacob. Donald Trump and Boris Johnson have always been men who refuse to follow the rules and the laws. Right now, Donald Trump, right, is, because Donald Trump says to you, oh, I'm so honest, I'm one of the most honest people in the world. And he believes by admitting to criminal acts, that's fine. He's saying that these paperwork is his and it's down to the presidential something. And he's saying it's his paperwork, right? And the department that deals with it, right? They need to beg him back for this paperwork because it's his, right? And they're saying, actually, no, it's not. These are confidential documents that you should not have. Now, I don't know whether or not, right, we should believe the department that deals with it, or we should believe Donald Trump, who's just saying it. Because that's all Donald Trump is doing. And when he's just talking here, this man is getting himself into real problems. When I tell you, right, he's got, this prosecutor, Jack Smith, this guy works at The Hague, right, and he don't play no games. This guy has got Donald Trump a trial, right, in August coming. Right. Donald Trump was expecting this trial to be next year, after the election. So after November 2024. Right. So he was looking for it to go into 2025 because Donald Trump wanted to say, oh, this is election interference. Now he say, well, you know something? What you can do is you can prove yourself innocent, and then, right, you can carry on with your election, your campaign run. Jack Smith is not playing with Donald Trump because you know why? Because Donald Trump has finally met someone, who says, you know what, when you're dealing with me, you play by the rules properly. You don't start bringing my wife and my children into all sorts of different, and my family members into all sorts of different nonsense. You don't do that, right? Because that's what one of Donald Trump's biggest things is, right? He starts bringing people's kids and their family and their wife and their cousins and whoever into it and say, oh, these people hate Trump. These people used to, put money into a campaign against Trump. and he starts bringing all people's different family members into it. Have you once heard Joe Biden mention Donald Trump's children? Even though, right, Donald Trump's children some of them was in the White House with him, right? Ivanka was getting herself like trademarks in China while Donald Trump is talking to Xi Jinping. They're getting £2 billion off of the Saudis, right? And still, right, the Republicans are like, oh, well, what about Hillary's emails? What about Clinton's like sock drawer? While Donald Trump, right, has been telling everybody who will listen, these was my documents and they was mine to take, right? And the DOJ are saying no, that is a criminal offence. And Donald Trump, right, this smart guy who really believes he's Ivy League, Donald Trump, right, is one of the was the world's biggest failed businessman whose dad gave him $400 million to get started. And this fool believes he's Ivy League. Donald Trump is trailer park done good. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. A special thanks here to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. And you've got this MP, Bob Seeley from the Isle of Wight, who is another person who was out there standing up for Boris Johnson, calling the committee a kangaroo call. And then 2 or 3 days ago, you've heard this guy interviewed on Newsnight, right? And they said to him, well, you calling the committee a kangaroo court. This is after the House of Parliament have banned Boris Johnson, right, from ever going into the House of Parliament with his parliamentary pass because they've taken it away, right? And I believe that he would have to pay back the money, for the legal aid money, what he got. I believe he's having to pay that back too. But they've taken away his parliamentary pass, which means he can't go in there and lobby, right? But this fool, right, is out there, right, telling people it's a kangaroo court. And then 2 or 3 days ago, I'm listening to this guy saying, I never said that. I thought, yes, you did, because that's the type of politics Boris Johnson and people like Donald Trump have been running, where politicians think, oh, well, you know what, just lie. But for a lot of them, it doesn't work. They can't get the lies out quick enough because you know what, this guy, he got, like 30p Lee got caught, like 30p Lee Anderson, yeah, he got caught out really badly because, he went, was phoned his friend and said, listen, when we knock on your door, pretend you don't know me. Right, forgetting that he had a radio mic on. Seriously, the level of politician that we got in this country. You look at these people and you think, how the hell did this incompetence get into the House of Parliament? How? David Cameron was in front of attended the COVID committee and was heckled afterwards because David Cameron, his policies led to Britain not being ready for a pandemic, because of his austerity measures. Because you got all these people who are so wealthy, and they're prepared to say to the working classes, "Oh, don't worry, man, you'll be okay, even when you can't feed your family." While they're sitting on millions of pounds. Right? But David Cameron's policies is the thing that really made COVID a lot worse for us. That's why he's at the inquiry. I mean, he didn't admit to that. I mean, I think he admitted to partly to it, but they were saying, we was preparing for a flu epidemic. So yeah, well, you've got a COVID epidemic, and because of your measures that you brought in, this country really suffered. It went really badly for us. Oh dear. I believe, if I say this, right, these people have got more money than sense. What do you think I'm talking about? I'm talking about people who think it's okay to go and disturb the dead, who want to go and pay £200,000 so they can go to the world's deepest cemetery, right? Billionaire Hamish Harding, right, who right now, if he's still alive, right, is thinking to himself, I wish I took my billions and I spent it on some social projects, right? Maybe put up some estates for London's working class, or for Edinburgh's working class, or for Manchester's working class, or for Leeds or Liverpool or Worcester's working class, right? Whoever. right? I bet Hamish Harding right now, if he's still alive, is thinking that, these people, on a serious note, 200 grand to go to a fucking cemetery. I would have taken him to a tour down my local cemetery for a lot less. I would have even dig up someone so he could have a look at them. Right? These people are nuts. Right? And you know something, you think, well, how the hell are you going to go down in something like this, like probably the size of 2 transit vans, right? And you haven't got any escape plan. If you heard, right, the guy who runs this outfit, right, that takes people down, because there's been 100 expeditions down there since the 80s, from since the Titanic's been found, right? And you say, I wonder if the Titanic's going to claim another 5 people, right? But I read a story about this, right? Because this did happen before, but luckily the people managed to free themselves. But they got wedged into the propeller of the Titanic, right? And luckily they managed to get themselves free. But you think, how comes, right, that this thing, right, it's supposed to actually what's supposed to happen, is if anything happens to it, it's supposed to just float straight back up. Right, and come straight back up. That it's built, apparently it's built like that. So it must be, if it's not up already, it's probably snagged somewhere, because it could already be up and miles away from where they're looking, because remember, it's in the Atlantic Ocean, and if you're looking for something the size of 2 transit vans in the Atlantic Ocean, good fucking luck with that. Right, but you think that they've got some beacon markers, or even, right, the thing should have a buoy attached to it, right, that, if they get into trouble, they can just release it, and then the buoy pops open and goes up to the surface. I know that they are 2.5 miles down, because they're like, it's 13,000 something feet. And, there is what, there's in the mile, there's 5,000 something feet per mile. So they're 2.5 miles down. So if you just think, if you just think of a place from your house, 1 mile, and then think of another mile to that place, and then another half a mile. That's how far they are down. And when you're that far down, the pressure, it's not, you won't drown, just crush you to death. Bam! Like that. Crushed. Right, so these guys, they haven't been pulled up yet, and I don't even think they've been found yet. So and when the last time I looked, I think we're 2 hours past the time that their air was due to run out. So and when I was listening to like 60, when a guy was talking, when there was like 60 hours to go, one guy was saying, well, they got 1%. I was like, damn. But as I said, these people, more money than sense. And I bet right now he's wishing he'd done some social projects, instead of flying around the motherfucking moon with Elon Musk last year, because that's what he'd done. This guy's been all over the place with Buzz Aldrin. He's got Guinness World Records for being the deepest part of the ocean and all these type of things. Parts of the ocean where you shouldn't be. Not even the military go down that far. The military go down 1,000 feet. These people want to go down further than the military. The military haven't even got anything that can get down to help them. There's one boat, right, that's got a long enough like cable that could get down there, and it only reached there like sometime, I think yesterday, right? But they still haven't been found yet. So good luck to these guys. Let's hope that their billions help them out. And just listening to that, right, you think, well, look at that. Right, this is like, let's just forget the Asian guys that's in there, yeah? Because let's deal with the English, with the British guys. Hamish, I'm sure he must be Scottish. So let's just deal with the British guys that's in there, because that is what the world is focusing on. They're not focusing on the Asian guys. No one cares about them. They're focusing on the British people, because there's 3 Brits down there. But there's over 150 migrants still missing off the coast of Greece. And what is the bigger story? 3 white people or over 150 brown and black people? What's the bigger story? You tell me. Lord Hammond says that Brexit is a disaster, and we need like like a new type of freedom of movement. So we'll call this like people in motion. But the only thing is, it's not going to be likewise. We are not going to be able to go It's just going to be, they're going to have free range to come over here, because right now, yeah, Britain needs, you know, tens of thousands of cleaners. And you see, the significance to that is this. No English people, yeah, have not done any of these type of cleaning jobs, right, from since sometime probably in the 80s. Because these type of cleaning jobs, yeah, are early morning up the West End, up the city, right? Because but if you see the amount of people in the mornings that are heading up the city, I'm talking about early in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock, heading up to the city to go and clean out the offices and all. Maybe all the cafes and all these type of things, but there are thousands of them. Right, just a complete different economy that you would have never known about unless you've seen it. The buses, one of the reasons why they've got the night buses, especially all them night buses going up to the West End, because they need to get all of those cleaning staff up and out before 6 a.m. Right, so the latest they're going to probably finish is like 6:30. So they are coming out, right, while all the city bods are now going in, right. So they can't get these cleaners. It's like a similar thing to Florida, how the Tories are going on now, because in Florida, yeah, they've said, you know what, they're going to kick in the migrants, telling the migrants, we don't want you here and this and that, right. Well, what happened? All the migrants left, right, left all the building sites empty. Right, no more Mexican music playing in the morning on all these building sites, right? And now I see one of the politicians in Florida saying to the migrants, listen, we're not serious. We're just saying that just to frighten you, right? But please, we want you to stay. We really want you to stay. When you see the building sites, they're empty. That's the same thing that's going to start happening in this country, even though it's already, it's literally already happening. Do you know what I mean? That's why so much of our businesses have gone and so much of them have closed down. Ben Wallace has missed out on his plum job in NATO, because you know what? The rest of the Europeans, it's mainly the people from the EU, they want someone from the EU to head it up. They want, someone that's in the EU. Even though right now, yeah, I think, who is it? It's, I think the guys from Norway that heads it right now, yeah? And Norway's not in the EU, but they've got to deal with the EU, right? And that's what the big difference is. So a lot of the Brexiters are saying, no, it's nothing to do with Brexit. Why Ben Wallace never got it? It is to do with Brexit, because you know what? Macron has really sticking it to Britain right now and saying, no, 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 and no. 80% of Leave voters believe Brexit is a success. And 18% of Brexit voters obviously have bumped their head. UK delis will be forced to put up their prices after new Brexit taxes. And don't we all just like a deli? But, already we haven't got control of anything. Our politicians have completely lost control of our economy. I will be doing a video on that tomorrow, because I want to talk about these mortgages, because that shit is really getting really painful for people right now. But yeah, so these new taxes, these new Brexit taxes, it's because Britain does not have a say over its own economy. Our economy is run by the private enterprise right now. Right? They have no clue. They do not know how to bring it back. Don't ask me, because all of these guys, they're trying to focus on an economy that is inside of the EU. But listen, I'm going to speak about that tomorrow anyway. So, my friends, this, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm DMC John Ribbs. It's really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.